The latest images out of Gaza have shocked the world. You got starved.
Not maybe idiots. So I'm not. One day everyone will have always been against this. Doug, what the happens when you drop a bajillion pounds of bombs on a city? Like, I don't know. It's not shocking. It's the obvious.
Starving children, desperate crowds of people seeking food, and the unbelievable gaslighting by Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, who demands that we believe him and not our lying eyes.
Is this the J-Press dipshit? Jeremy Ben-Ami? Is this the J-Press guy? You're not referring to two separate incidents? I'll wait in a confirmation. It's not the J Street guy. You're talking about two separate things. Okay.
Here's an example.
Israel is presented.
Ben-Ami is the guy. Yeah, I just said Jeremy Ben-Ami, you retard. Listen to what I'm saying. I said, is the Jeremy Ben-Ami the J Street guy? That's what I said. I said his name so that you would know I wasn't referring to the person who was on screen. Yes? Okay, thank you.
As though we are applying
pro-democracy Americans.
J Street,
Jeremy,
thank
great
you.
To see you, and thank you both for doing this.
Thanks, Tommy. Which category do we fall into? The categories you listed at the beginning.
I cannot say. I'm a
neo-lib shell.
I'm a pro-abundance dork. I don't know.
Well, Medhi did a bunch of events with Liz Cheney for Biden. So yeah, just
all
kidding.
my life.
Just kidding.
I love spending time with Liz Cheney.
Love Cheney. So very quick background for listeners. So the war in Gaza has been raging for 21 months since the Hamas terror attack on October 7th. Nearly 1,200 Israelis were killed. More than 200 were taken hostage. 20 of those hostages are believed to be alive and in Hamas captivity still. Since October 7th, the Gaza Health Ministry says 60,000 people have been killed, though many independent organizations believe the casualty count is much higher. And on Tuesday, a UN body called the IPC said, quote, "The worst case scenario of famine is currently playing out in the Gaza Strip. Mounting evidence shows that widespread starvation, malnutrition, and diseases are driving a rise in hunger-related deaths. So the situation is dire, and the world's attention is now focused on how to respond." And so today we're going to step back, debate some of these bigger picture questions, and figure out how to go forward. My role here will be to hopefully kind of push you both on uncomfortable questions and then just facilitate a conversation and get out of the way. So let's start with Jeremy. Jeremy, how do you think the Democratic Party should adjust its policies in the wake of this war? Specifically, should Democrats announce that they're going to stop supporting military aid to Israel? And should Democrats support recognizing Palestine as a state, like French President Emmanuel Macron recently announced he's going to do in September?
Yeah, there's got to be major adjustments. It should have been adjusted 15 years ago, 30 years ago. The idea that we're going to provide a blank check to Israel, act as its lawyer in international fora, and then put ourselves forward as a mediator in a conflict with another people, it never made sense from the beginning. And so either we need to get out of the way. And
I was watching Dan Abrams this morning, and his take was that the good Democrats, aka pro-Israeli Jews, need to be harsher on Netanyahu or risk eroding their own credibility. Feels like a turning point. But that's what I mean about laundering liberal Zionism. Like, they'll turn against Netanyahu, they'll turn against this starvation of Palestinians, but they've been starving for a long time. They've been dying for a long time, right? Like, if you only turn against the Holocaust when it gets like so bad that you can't ignore it, then you were never anti the Holocaust. You were only anti the optics of the Holocaust. You know, it's indefensible. And who comes after Netanyahu? Have you seen how the Israeli population polls when it comes to the treatment of Palestinians? Okay, trust me, the next person they throw up there is not going to be bring our hands together in peace type of guy.
Let somebody else try to mediate this.
Didn't this J Street guy literally just say the U.S. should have stopped giving Israel a blank check at least 15 years ago? Yeah, that is what he just said. That's true.
And I think the French have shown some real leadership working with Saudi, working now obviously with the UK and others. But we need to stop writing a blank check. Our aid is not an as of right, birthright. And we need to stop providing protection for Israel in international institutions for accountability for the violations of international law that it perpetrates. And so those are core elements of Democratic and Republican foreign policy of the United States. They are, in my opinion, they have been for 15 years. As long as J Street's existed, it is part of the problem. And the Democratic Party needs to shift and make sure that it's understood its support for the state and the people of Israel is real, but it cannot be in the form of blank check and providing immunity.
So, Medhi, on Pod Save America this week, I argued in favor of cutting off military aid to Israel. Someone I really respect and who's been a tough critic of Israeli policy and of U.S. policy said he felt like even that was going too far. This person argued that military aid has been critical in helping the U.S. broker peace deals in the past, like the Camp David Accords, and will likely be part of peace deals in the future, and that we should be more nuanced. And instead, the U.S. should be for conditioning aid and enforcing laws already on the books, like the Leahy Law, which says the U.S. cannot train or equip military units that commit gross human rights violations. That law has never been enforced against Israel. What do you think about that? Do you think that reproach would be easier for Democrats politically, but also sort of get us where we want to be?
I think that debate is done. I think the conditioning of aid was something people forget. 2020, you had mainstream centrist candidates like Pete Buttigieg saying he was willing to consider conditioning aid. This is well before the current genocide, but post, obviously, the various Israeli attacks on Gaza over the years. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders. In 2020, they were talking about conditioning aid, and people like me are like, wow,
at
that's
the
a new
J3
topic.
Forum.
The bar is so far over towards Israel that this sounds like it's a meaningful departure. The only reason offering conditional aid to Israel sounds good is because the norm right now is unconditional, no strings attached aid, which is insane. I don't want them to have conditional aid. I want them to be occupied by the United Nations and have their democracy dismantled until their population learns how to embrace human rights. I don't like, what do you, like, I don't want them to have conditional aid. Conditional to what? We don't talk about conditional aid to Russia. I don't like, why?
Was that with Jeremy? Me and Ben Rhodes.
And I was thinking to myself, that's a new topic for me to hear about. But we're way past that now. Fundamentally, right now, the United States is complicit in a genocide. It's complicit in one of the worst crimes of our lifetimes. And therefore, the only question is, do we want to be complicit or not? It's a moral question. It's a legal question. The politics has to come later. Morally and legally, we should not be arming and funding a military that is being investigated both by the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice, and is using our weaponry to kill innocent civilians. Yes, we're in violation of the Leahy Law. Leahy himself says we're in violation of the law he wrote. He said that a year ago. So that's just a no-brainer. But I think we have to go past that now. We have billions of dollars that we've given over the last year or two. I think $20 billion under Biden alone. I think Trump came along with another 5-10 billion. Can't even keep track. What's a few billion between friends? But a lot of money in military aid and hardware has been given to Israel just since October the 7th, separate to our annual $3 billion going back, several decades. So I think the debate about conditioning aid, that's all over. Israeli generals said after October the 7th that without American bombs and bullets, we can't do what we're doing. And that's why people like me, I wrote in The Guardian, I think over a year ago, that if Biden made a phone call like Ronald Reagan did to Begin in 1982, he could stop this in 20 minutes because of the leverage that we have. He didn't do it. We're way past all of that now. Right now, we are in the midst of a genocide. We're in the midst of a famine. What on earth are we doing having any ties with this rogue government, this rogue regime?
So, Jeremy, a few days ago...
You guys see Mike Johnson went to the wall the other day, for the standard little handhold? Love this shit, man. It's great. It's not weird. It's not weird. The cuck wall, yeah. Love everyone in power having to go to the cuck wall. It's actually super weird. No, it's not weird. It's not weird. Do you think the wall has secrets it shares? I mean, I think when you take your trip over here to pray at the Western Wall, you probably hear some secrets from someone, I imagine. Pictures like this are anti-Semitism generators. They really, really are. Yeah, you have to do so much work to pull, like, the Jewish question conspiracism is like not only an inadvertent outcome of the relationship we have with Israel, but a seemingly deliberate one in order to stoke anti-Semitism and thus legitimize the idea that Jews need a nuclear rogue state to protect them. Yes, top right is JD Vance. It's so weird. You have to do so much work to pull people away from this.
AOC's Congressman Ocasio-Cortez's office in the Bronx was vandalized. A group of protesters splashed red paint on the building. They left a sign that said AOC funds genocide in Gaza. And that happened right after she voted against an amendment to a military spending bill that would have cut $500 million from funding for Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system. And so that vote from AOC, it kicked up a bigger debate about whether lawmakers should make a distinction between offensive and defensive weapon systems. Like missile defense systems are considered defensive weapon systems. Obviously, a bomb would be an offensive system. Crystal Ball pressed Senator Alyssa Slotkin on this question during an excellent interview on her show Breaking Points. Let's listen to a clip.
And Pod Save is getting... ever since the election, man, I feel like they've been getting more and more blackpilled. They had a conversation with the goddamn Kamala staffers, and I feel every single clip that I've seen of this guy since then, I feel like he's descending further and further into the hole, you know?
Will you cut off aid to Israel so long as they're committing crimes against humanity?
There is a difference between a weapon to protect a country from incoming missiles versus other type. Offensive and defensive weapons are different.
So would you support offensive weapons ban? Like, would you stop any offensive aid to Israel?
That certainly, to me, would be a place to look, but I'm not going to cut off a blanket next sale on a defensive weapon that comes through. No.
So, Jeremy, I mean, where do you land on this?
And then she didn't show up for the offensive weapons resolution.
Voting against Iron Dome funding.
Yeah, you probably won't be surprised to know I land where Alyssa Slotkin lands on this. I actually think Iron Dome is one of the most important pro-peace systems that exist because every time a missile gets intercepted in the air and it doesn't land on a school or on a bus or on kids or whatever, we are doing something right. And I think that
nothing propagates peace in the Middle East more than all of these poor, like, ragtag Arab nations being reminded day in and day out that the asymmetrical warfare that they engage in, the other side is being funded by the most powerful country in the world with the most wealthy military in the world. You know, just, yeah, it definitely helps.
The systems that are trying to tamp down the level of damage and tamp down the violence are part of an important equation.
Sure, then give the Iron Dome to Iran. Give it to Hezbollah. Give it to Syria. Like, this is such a bullshit talking point. The idea that you like the Iron Dome because it saves lives. No, you don't. You like it because it saves Israeli lives. You wouldn't want the Iron Dome going to anyone else. Why pretend?
So I think a sledgehammer approach that just says absolutely nothing, nowhere, ever for Israel is a mistake. I think Israel does actually have real security threats, and it is,
which it earns.
It can be under a different government, an ally of the United States, and we can be rowing in the same direction on things. We need to use the leverage we have, and if we stop with any aid, any funding, if we decide we're just going to end the relationship, then we no longer have any leverage. We're not using the leverage. I'm not arguing that. I want us to be using the leverage, but it seems a little bit counterintuitive to sort of take away all of that leverage and say we should give them nothing, and then nobody will listen to us or talk to us at that point. So I land where Senator Slotkin lands.
Medhi, what do you think?
It's just bullshit. The idea that we, like, give, no matter what, we give them, like, the sophisticated anti-missile defense technology. Just for some reason, we've decided to invest billions and billions into them, no strings attached, because we're so concerned about protecting human lives, allows them to act with impunity because they know that we're their shield no matter what.
Yeah, I have to disagree with Jeremy. Three quick things. Number one, as I say, I take Jeremy's point on the leverage, but I think we're way past that. If this was November, December 2023, then sure. I think we're way in a different place. 21 months of nonstop killing. This is not about leverage. This is about stopping the killing. And if that means stopping US arms, sure. And again, moral complicity, which is important to me. I would say I'm a great admirer of AOC. I'm one of her biggest admirers. I don't agree with her on Iron Dome. I think the ridiculous vandalism of her office and accusing her of being pro-Israel is nonsense. I just happen to disagree with her and Jeremy on this issue about kind of the defensive nature of Iron Dome. The problem is that Israel doesn't simply use Iron Dome in a defensive capacity. It uses Iron Dome to project force abroad. It's because it has Iron Dome that it acts so recklessly because it knows it has impunity. It's because it has American support that it can do what it does. I can think of no other country on planet Earth that has attacked 5 different countries in the last year. Israel has attacked Iran, Syria, Yemen, and of course, West Bank and Gaza, constant bombing of both of those places, and Lebanon, right? So 4 countries plus occupied Palestinian territories. Part of the reason it's able to do that is because it says, well, I'm the bully in the neighborhood. I'm the big boy. I've got the superpower behind me. I've got Iron Dome. Come get me. And I think that's a fundamental part of its strategic thinking, is that we can act aggressively, recklessly, unilaterally, preemptively, if that's the phrase they want to use, because we have this support from Big Brother United States in the form of Iron Dome, and not just Iron Dome. You remember last year when Iran and Israel first exchanged missiles, it was the American Air Force, it was the Jordanians, the Saudis, all came to Israel's defense to block some of those Iranian drones and missiles. So I think as long as, look, my sorry to use a crude analogy.
See, he made the same point as Vosh. Yeah, he watches my streams, clearly. Yeah, it's insane. When Israel wants to make a strike, the Western world goes, all right, we'll help. When Israel, faces reprisal for their military aggression, we're there. We're there with our money, our Iron Dome missiles. It's insane. It's crazy. It's insane. Like even the fact that like conditional aid after nearly 2 years of nonstop killing is considered an acceptable middle point to draw. Like, oh, no. We're going to finally hold Israel to account. Now, rather than giving them 2,000-pound bombs to annihilate entire neighborhoods of civilians, we're only going to give them extremely advanced defensive technology to protect them after they annihilate those neighborhoods. Like,
my analogy has always been Israel reminds me of the child in the playground that goes around picking fights with everyone, knowing that his big brother will come along and sort everything out if things go wrong. And big brother has to say to little brother, I'm not there for you anymore. Fight your own battles. See how that goes. And maybe then little brother will stop going around picking fights with everyone.
I think that that's a very selective read of this. I understand, Medhi, and I hear in your voice, and I know in my voice, and in many of us, anybody with a conscience is exceedingly beyond, the words angry, and we want to do something to take out our anger. But it's really, I think, important to take a wider lens here and understand that Hamas, Hezbollah, other factions have, over the course of the last 20 years, consistently fired missiles at Israeli civilians.
I wonder what Israel's done to deserve that.
Centers, and they have consistently caused casualties and deaths with no strategic aim other than terror. Iron Dome has played an important role over the course of those 20 years and making sure that a lot of those missiles didn't land. Nobody wants more than me to find the points of leverage to say to Netanyahu.
This is why I hate the J Street guys. I hate liberal Zionists so much because they're cowards. Oh, no one wants to stop this genocide more than me, but not supplying Israel billions of dollars in defensive equipment that they can use to protect themselves while committing a genocide and firing missiles into neighboring countries? Well, listen, don't we want to save lives here? But trust me, I'm like really committed to stopping the slaughter of Palestinians. Yeah. I mean, keep in mind that, like, politically, the point of these people is to provide a different framing for the same economic and military goals, right? Israel remains our forward military base, the place where we get to dump a bunch of contractor money on, the place where we test out surveillance equipment, the place where we get to, like, build the front edge of the Palantir, like, mechanized surveillance military state, but in like a pussy way, like a gay liberal. Oh no. This isn't. These aren't auto perimeter turrets that lock onto the skulls of 4-year-olds crawling over to gather the breadcrumbs that we've scattered at the fence. No. These are actually like friendly air fresheners, that automatically lock onto the skulls of 4-year-olds. Like it's you preserve exactly the same contractual relations. You just do it in a less bloodthirsty way. But in preserving those relations, you are in fact preserving the blood.
And to the extremists in this government, who I despise with every fiber of my being, as a Jew who cares about Israel, I think this government is doing everything in its power to undermine the future of the state of Israel.
That's why they talk like that. See, exactly, right? Like that's the argument from them, that the open bloodthirst of Netanyahu and his cronies, and frankly of the Israeli people, compromise what is otherwise a very profitable and enduring long-term military project.
Israel, and I want them gone, but I don't think that taking away a missile defense program that over the course of decades has saved lives and prevented wars at the times that it was used, I don't think that's the right strategy.
Can I just ask two questions to you, Jeremy? One is, I totally take on board everything you say, but do you disagree with what I said, that having all these American armaments and defense allows Israel to bomb, in violation of the UN Charter, sovereign neighbors like Lebanon, like Iran, like Yemen, like Syria? They have no legal right to be bombing Syria right now. Certainly the attack on Iran was there's no legal basis for that. You surely accept that they're doing that because they know that they are untouchable at home. And my other quick question is, you keep mentioning this current government. I mean, the next government of Lapid, Gantz, whoever it is, would be doing very similar things. Let's not pretend this is all just about Netanyahu.
So, on both points, we probably don't agree. I mean, I do think that
you're a fucking
the United
liar.
States has...
Because you're a fire, because you're no different than AIPAC. You're no different than Fetterman. You're all the same. You will always defend the exact same points. You're the exact same type. I saw some people on Twitter getting annoyed, liberals, of course, getting annoyed that the AIPAC tracker account mixes funding from J Street and AIPAC when talking about politicians being compromised. They're the same dude, okay? They're the exact same dude. There's no meaningful difference between Fetterman, you know, or Randy Fine or whatever, flapping their fat arms around and you know, singing the praise of shooting children in the head, or people like Cory Booker or Schumer or whatever, who will go like, yeah, I don't really like how that's all going down or whatever, but like, yeah, we need to basically just do the same thing like forever, basically. Like, it's the exact same dynamic.
Absolutely. As I said before, through the provision of essentially a get out of jail free card, through the provision of diplomatic immunity in international forums, and through the extension of its military and security umbrella, without any questions, a blank check, it has extended that impunity. And you know, your playground analogy, I would agree with. That still doesn't change to me the benefit of the specific missile defense programs that do defend against terrorists. And I hope you would agree with me that, you know, the thing.
Notice how he says terrorists here. The Israeli government fired into Iran, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, West Bank, and Gaza. But when people fire back, it's terrorists, even though Israel has the defensive armaments and they don't.
Things that Hamas and Hezbollah have done over the course of decades. I am first in line to say Palestinians need their freedom. They need self-determination. They don't need a terrorist group like Hamas that is firing missiles at civilian centers, kibbutzes, moshavim, doing what they do. I think Iron Dome is important, and I make the distinction. And I do agree with you that the part of the reason why Israel acts with impunity is because they feel that the United States will always have its back, and we need to make clear we're only going to have its back when it does things that are justified and legal. I have to disagree.
Except for with the Iron Dome.
On the question of whether or not the next Israeli government will be different. I think this is a qualitatively different government. I may still disagree with Naftali Bennett, Yair Lapid, Benny Gantz, but they are not racist ethno-nationalists who are...
Naftali Bennett is a racist, Jeremy. Come on.
Well,
said,
you know,
he's referred to Arabs climbing on trees. Come on.
This, I grant you that to a government.
This pussy, dude. Like, again, the point is to like launder the project, but he did. They don't even have the stones to sit there and like defend their lies, you know, pretending the next Israeli government wouldn't be just as ethno-nationalist. Jesus Christ, you know.
Though, which would have a Yair Golan, which would have a Yair Lapid in it, would be categorically different in character than this government. So I just take a different approach on the difference between this government and a future government.
You know, I think the fact that this provision that AOC voted against, I think only got 6 votes. So this is something that is, you know, very few folks are for cutting off Iron Dome funding.
Only 6 votes to cut off Iron Dome funding. It's disgusting how captured our government is by capital. It's insane. It's insane. You would think just by accident you would have more people who feel it's wrong for us to provide unconditional military aid to a state committing a genocide. Just roll the dice, you know?
Moment. But I do think we should sort of put a pin in this one, because this is an important conversation going forward, because I think people understandably don't want civilians in Israel or anywhere else to be hurt by rocket fire. But also I think they know much.
Well, I don't know. Maybe the Israeli population could support political leaders who don't wage like indiscriminate war with all their neighbors and commit a genocide and occupy an entire ethnic group. Basically, you know, I'm sure some of the bombs that hit Dresden killed people who were like unaffiliated with the Nazis and were good people. But in like a broad civilizational sense, I feel like the civilians who were ooh-rahing at Nazi rallies, you know, if you were all right with occupying Poland, I feel like you kind of lose the moral standing to complain about Dresden getting ignited. You know, listen, I'm not saying every guy at Dresden was evil. I'm just saying that maybe we're missing a bit of a bigger picture consideration, you know? Should have let Vernon Sherman finish the job, if you ask me. Yeah, not every single guy in the South was evil, but... you know, he could have gone further. Sherman, I mean.
money is fungible, and if you're not spending $500 million on Iron Dome, you can spend it on offensive weapons. And also, I do think there's an argument to be made that missile defense systems incentivize or enable more aggressive military action. But Jeremy, I want to shift gears a little bit and ask you about AIPAC. AIPAC, for those who don't know, it's the American Israel Public Affairs Group.
I'm just hearing about this.
As America's pro-Israel lobby. They work to build, quote, bipartisan support for the U.S.-Israel relationship. That includes lobbying for the U.S. to provide security assistance to Israel, countering Iran, a bunch of other issues. A lot of people argue that AIPAC is lobbying for Israel and that they should have to register as a foreign lobbying group under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA. Do you think AIPAC should have to register under FARA?
Well, that's been investigated. I mean, the stance of AIPAC has always been that we should back up whatever the Israel government supports, right or wrong. The reason we started JSTRD is because that's the wrong way to be pro-Israel.
See, I mean, he kind of gives the game away, right? It's not about protecting Palestinians. It's not even about advocating for Jews. This is a rhetorically ineffective way of protecting Zionist interests. Like, we have the exact same set of military and political interests, but we think that the open bloodthirstiness is like a less effective way to go about it.
Disagreeing with the government of Israel and actually trying to chart a different path.
At least the AIPAC people aren't debating Medhi Hasan. These, like, the AIPAC people know they're evil. They just sit there in Washington, like, cold calling representatives and making them say thank you once a day or whatever. I don't know why in this environment you would think, well, this is what you can expect with like the liberal Zionist bent. You're going to see more and more Democrats hand-wring over this, and they're going to be like, well, okay, Netanyahu's bad, genocide's bad, starvation's bad, but like they're only doing it because they realize that at least in the midterms and the upcoming election, a lot of politicians are going to be branded for their association with Israel. Like they're going to try to find a way to keep the same substance with a different cover.
United States and for Israel is pro-Israel. And so we disagree 100% with them, but their stated approach to everything is we're just going to support and back whatever it is that the government of Israel does. And so, whether or not they're doing it at the explicit behest of and, are actually acting as an agent, or they're just simply doing it, we'll let the courts decide. But that they state it themselves. That's their mission. That's the way that they approach their advocacy. And, you don't need a court case to just know that that's who they are.
Yeah, I mean, Medhi, same question to you, but also with a twist, because in 2020, the Department of Justice ordered AJ Plus, the U.S. affiliate of Al Jazeera, to register under FARA. And I believe they're still fighting that order. But DOJ said, well, AJ Plus's activities are controlled by the Qatari government. You worked at Al Jazeera back in the day. Do you think that's a fair characterization? And what do you make of the disparity between the treatment of AIPAC and AJ Plus by the Justice Department?
I mean, I worked at Al Jazeera, and if anyone's seen my interview with the Qatari foreign minister, I think it's fair to say that the Qataris were not telling me what to say or what to do, and if they were, I wasn't listening. No, and I still do a show for Al Jazeera called Head to Head, and no one interferes in the editorial line of that, and you can see it for yourself on YouTube. I think it's an absurd analogy that Republicans might make to try and defend
anybody who thinks that Medhi Hasan is compromised by Qatar. Like, you cannot say that and then argue that AIPAC should not be registered as a foreign lobby. I think AIPAC should not be registered as a foreign lobby, technically, as a matter of, like, my belief that it's entirely American military and capital interests that use Israel as a rhetorical front. But in a practical sense, like, I'd be okay with them being registered as a foreign lobby anyway, because I hate them and because I think it's bullshit. If you're going to f my country, at least do it from an American perspective, It's bullshit, like how much fealty. You see that shit? Literally today, by the way, Trump said that if a state demonstrates insufficient fealty to Israel, the federal government will withhold disaster aid from them. That was just today. If a state is not sufficiently pro-Israel, then if a tornado, hurricane, whatever else hits your state, good luck with that. Figure it out in a state level.
Republicans in particular right now, because of course AIPAC has become so partisan. It's interesting that Alyssa Slotkin interview you mentioned on Breaking Point, she was asked about registering, and I was surprised to see her kind of go, well, maybe, I'm not sure, which was surprising to hear from a leading Democrat. I think it is shifting. I mean, look, AJ Plus is a media organization. Al Jazeera is a media organization. There are many media organizations either owned or funded by foreign governments. That doesn't make them foreign lobbying operations. Al Jazeera English, when it covers whatever it is, the conflict in South Sudan is not lobbying for Qatar.
Right.
AIPAC, as Jeremy just pointed out, is very brazen about what it does. If memory serves me correctly, the predecessor organization to AIPAC was investigated by RFK, the good RFK, not the evil one we currently have, back when he was AG in the 60s. So this has been a long-running conversation. I think Senator William Galbraith, the famous chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, had asked for AIPAC to be investigated as a foreign agent. And clearly, look, there's been cases in the past where people have been accused of spying, indicted, etc., etc. Clearly, there needs to be at minimum an investigation into what's going on here. But, you know, if you try and ask these questions, people say anti-Semitism and try and shut you down. As I say, Alyssa Slotkin actually being open to it shows the ground is moving. Of course, Tucker Carlson infamously asked Ted Cruz about AIPAC in that takedown interview. And, you know, someone would have to point out to where has the AIPAC ever taken a different stance from the Israeli government? Has it ever taken a different stance from the Israeli government? And that is a question worth asking.
Yeah, agreed.
The answer is clear. That's their whole raison d'etre. I mean, this isn't a hide the ball, right? They're not saying, "Oh no, we're very different." This is what
he's very gleeful over this because J Street's big, like, the rhetorical line they take means that they do disagree with the Israeli state quite often, just not in a way that actually, like, matters, you know? So, like, he'll get excited over this. Yeah. The fact that AIPAC never disagrees with the state of Israel, that probably means they are a foreign lobby, you know? Not like us, though. We're, like, super above board. Anyway, more Iron Dome funding, please.
They say. This is what they do. The interesting thing is, of course, that the hundreds of millions of dollars that they are funded with is not coming from Israel. It's coming from Republican billionaires, right? I mean, it's important to actually call out specifically, whereas other foreign agents are getting back channel funding, perhaps from foreign governments. This is an advocacy organization where you do see publicly, its finance records for its super PAC. And it's just one Republican billionaire after another.
Yeah.
And then they use that money to interfere in Democratic primaries.
Right, exactly.
And they did it to take down Jamal Bowman. They did it to take down Cori Bush. They were quite open and proud about that. What's interesting is, and this goes back to the heart of this discussion.
And the Democrats were totally silent when it happened, too. With Bowman and Bush, totally silent. The Democratic Party just let it happen. Just stood by the side and watched.
In the ads they ran in those primary campaigns, they did not mention Israel. Right. They talked about the infrastructure bill and how Cori and Jamal were not pro-Biden enough. They didn't mention Israel because they know that Israel is a hugely unpopular issue. And that is where we are right now as a country.
Remember this one? In leaked recording, Cory Booker says he and AIPAC president, quote, text back and forth like teenagers. From 2019. Does he kick his feet like a schoolgirl while doing so? Presumably. We can only assume, yeah.
Americans are not happy with Israel. I think Pew found for the first time ever a majority of Americans have an unfavorable view of Israel. Surprise, surprise. A majority of Americans want restrictions on arms sales. I don't know if you guys saw the Data for Progress poll that came out this week. Astonishing numbers from New York primary Democratic voters. 79% say the U.S. should restrict arms to Israel. 78% say Israel's committing a genocide. 86% say the $30 billion paid to Israel since October the 7th will be better spent at home here in the U.S. These are Democratic primary voters who are not being represented in Congress. There's no representation of those views in Congress. Not at all.
I mean, I would say that the majority of Jewish Americans also have an unfavorable view of what Israel is doing. And the majority of Jewish Americans do not want...
But Congress doesn't, Jeremy. That's the point. But the Democratic Party does not.
But you're seeing a very, very significant shift. I mean, you are seeing unanimous letters coming out of the Senate that are condemning what is going on. You are seeing increasing calls for restrictions on...
And how's that going? In the voting. 6 people voted to block Iron Dome funding. 6 people.
On 8. I mean, you are seeing...
No, Jeremy, come on. We're sitting on a day where there's going to be a vote for Bernie Sanders' arms bill. That is not going to get a majority of Democrats, let alone a majority of members of Congress. That is the tragedy we're in. You can sign all the letters you want, but as long as they keep voting for arms and money, they are complicit in the genocide, and they are not representing the party base. I have not seen such a disconnect on any issue from the Democratic Party, where you've got 80-90% of Democrats saying one thing, and in Congress, it's 80-90% the other direction. That's a crisis of democracy at this point.
More than 80 to 90%, like 95%, you know?
But I will say, I mean, just to give the Democrats in the Senate, I mean, I do think that it is very possible you will get a majority of the Democrats voting for this joint resolution of disapproval today.
Resolution of disapproval. F you. Also, notice how his, even though he's critical of AIPAC and Israel, notice how he won't be critical of Democratic politicians who are going with the AIPAC line. Why? Because he works with a lobbying group. Those are his patrons and his clients. Like, his job is to appeal to them. He's there to be their through line to capital when AIPAC fails. When AIPAC becomes so politically unviable that the Democrats have to find a new way of being, you know, fiercely loyal to Israel no matter what. And that's what he's there for. So he won't actually criticize the Democrats. They're his future client base.
You know, all of us have been around this for a very long time. We are working on this one senator at a time, one state at a time, and there has been a sea change. And if you had introduced this kind of a resolution a few years back, you would have maybe gotten Bernie, and one yes vote. And I believe we're at the point now where you're going to get a majority of the Democrats in the Senate. And I think it's a sea change, Medhi. I think, change doesn't happen.
I hope you're right. But, it took 22 months of 60,000 people dead and 17,000 children dead and a man-made famine for them to even come out and vote on some resolutions and sign some letters. So, look, I'm all for welcoming people. Tommy was having this debate on Twitter the other day. I'm all for welcoming people who change their minds.
Medhi was factually wrong about the Senate vote. The majority of Dems voted in favor of Bernie's resolution. The blocking of Iron Dome funding? What are we referring to? That wasn't Bernie. Which resolution are we referring to? Oh, that was MTG's. That's right. What was Bernie's resolution? That was the was about aid? Yeah, I don't give a shit about that. Where's the UN occupation of Israel resolution?
For Angus King coming out strongly against Israel. But that doesn't change the fact that for the last 2 years nearly, these people, Democrats in Congress, were A, not representing the American public, and B, supporting a genocide, arming a genocide, funding war crimes, funding Israeli snipers shooting kids in the testicles, funding torture in Israeli gulags, funding, the blocking of infant formula going into Gaza. That happened on a Democratic president's watch. That happened on a Democratic senator's watch. And that, I think we really have to have a reckoning about that.
We have to have a reckoning, but I also think it's really important to have a balanced reckoning. And I think that one of the reasons why it has taken 22 months is because what did this begin on October 7th with? It began with what was a horrific, a day that is beyond description of what was done. And I
beyond description. Jesus fucking Christ. Jesus Christ, man.
I think that it takes a little bit of perspective on the fact that there is a deep problem on both sides here. And it isn't, to only go one point after another about Israel does make the conversation difficult.
But what do you mean by both sides, Jeremy? Who
Oh, the Bernie's resolution, that was the one where 27 Democrats voted in favor of it. Okay, yeah. Where the number grew. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I was mixing that one up in the MTG resolution in my head. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
What I'm saying is that Hamas is an evil terror organization.
But we don't fund or arm Hamas, so it's not relevant to the conversation.
No, but it's exceedingly important if you're going to have a rational conversation and reach people across an aisle that there be some acknowledgement. Really,
no. If you want Kissinger to stop illegally bombing Laos, you actually don't need to have a conversation about like how the people in Laos are mean. It's not necessary at all. And the Israeli government is demonstrably, empirically, objectively, factually, significantly more evil than Hamas by any measurement. If you want to go by human suffering or mortality rate, it's impossible to compare the two. The sheer scale of the killing done by Israel, just absolutely, I'm sorry, like they're just the goats. They're goated with the sauce, okay? Suppose we pull all of Israel's military funding. Would all the countries in the area that Israel has bombed target Israel for revenge? Probably not, because that'd be stupid, because they still have a huge military, but also let them figure it out. Not my problem.
There was a crime committed, and there are terrorists on the other side, and their worldview.
But that's all we've acknowledged, Jeremy. But that's all we've acknowledged for 22 months. Like every American member of Congress only talks about Hamas and hostages, doesn't talk about Palestinian deaths, and hasn't voted against arms restrictions or leverage. To go back to where we started, forget ending arms sales. You said you support conditioning aid. You support using arms as leverage. That is
Israeli snipers play a game where on certain days they aim for different body parts. There were reports from doctors that on one day all the gunshot wounds that came in would be in the head, the next in the heart, the next in the groin. That's what Medhi was talking about. Yeah, I've read those articles.
Not been the case in the Democratic Party in government. Joe Biden barely paused one set of 2,000-pound bombs. That's it. Otherwise, he gave Netanyahu everything he wanted. So the Democrats, I take your point. It was look, October 7th was a horrific day, but every day since October the 7th has been a horrific day for people in Gaza. I know that you know, there was no good part of this war. I know J Street came out for a ceasefire in about January, but that doesn't mean October, November, December were not horrific months for Gazans who were being bombed with US bombs. Thousands of people died in those first few months after October the 7th.
Right. And October 7th happened.
It's like a parody with these people, man. It's like a joke. Jesus Christ. Did it? Yeah, I'm just hearing this for the first time.
For those of us in the Jewish community, those of us who have friends and family who died on that day, those of us who are, really, really deeply committed to finding a peaceful resolution to this conflict, that first few months was a very, very difficult period. And
wow, that must be incredibly difficult for you. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that you and the people you know have suffered uniquely in the context of this conflict that is currently taking place. People you know dying. Everyone shut up. Everyone shut up and pay attention, okay? A guy whose sympathies lie with the genociding country has experienced losses in his community, okay? Jesus Christ, man. This is what I mean about that pussy liberal shit, too. This, like, everyone quiet. Can we have a moment of silence? Can we all hold space for this, please, everyone? Listen, I'm just feeling really, like, microaggressed right now when you talk about how Israel doesn't deserve Iron Dome funding. It's like, it's pathetic. We need to hold space for this conversation where we discuss the trauma we experienced. Yeah, okay, that's great. Phenomenal. Thank you for reiterating these points. Death is, in fact, bad. So about the Iron Dome funding. Jesus Christ, man.
It remains a very difficult period for the people whose families are still in tunnels underneath Gaza. I mean, it is important. Again, I think it is a one-sided presentation of this that makes it difficult to come to a positive place for American policy, for communal dialogue. There is a terrorist group holding people hostage. If tomorrow they decided to release the hostages, all of this would end too.
They offered to release the hostages day one. Literally day one, they offered in exchange for Israel not militarily occupying Gaza. And the IDF said, Lamau, no. And they've done that multiple times since.
Right. Jeremy, you don't believe that. You don't believe that. No, you don't. Come on. That you're J Street. You're not AIPAC. That's an AIPAC talking point. That if you release the hostages, this all ends. The Israeli government made it very clear that is not the case. The Israeli government made it very clear they're staying in Gaza. Israeli ministers, the settlements ministers said it just last week.
Medhi Hasan sees the game. He's like, you're forgetting you're talking. You're getting them mixed up, man. You have your AIPAC hat on rather than your J Street hat on right now.
It's just not about the hostage. Smotrich has said it. Netanyahu has said it. They've all said that this is not just about the hostages. Come on. They could release every hostage tomorrow. They've made it very clear. The ethnic cleansing of Gaza is happening in front of our eyes. It's happening with a Trump green light. Netanyahu has not hidden it. Smotrich has not hidden it. Ben Gvir has not hidden it. In fact, opposition politicians who you've praised have not hidden it. So please, let's not fall back into that trap that if the hostages were released, this would all be over tomorrow. It's just not. It just defies what we've seen for 22 months.
Anybody on any side of any argument who is making the case that it is a 100-0 situation where the entirety of the blame, the entirety of the problem lies on one side.
Jeez, dude, I really do hate liberals, man. I hate them more than I hate the fascists when they argue for fascist talking points. I would so much rather it be Fetterman, and Fetterman would be sitting here being like, we need to kill more of them! We need to kill more! Bomb more! We need to kill more! I would so prefer that to this disingenuous whinging, you know? I cannot stand it. I can't stand this performative weakness from people who are trying to secure indefinite permission to commit a genocide. You know, because we're not talking about holding space for our therapy groups or whatever. We're talking about a genocide. You know, his job is to keep this going.
I have a problem with that. And, I just don't think it is true. I think
it depends what we're talking about, though, Jeremy, right? Like, I agree with you. 100% of the problems in the Middle East are not on one side. Agreed. But when we're talking about what's happened in Gaza, yes, 100% of the responsibility for the killing and starving of Gazan civilians is on Israel. That's undeniable. Just as the civilians who were killed on October the 7th, that's on Hamas.
Right. But if October 7th had not happened, then this wouldn't have happened. And
but that doesn't justify it.
Well, yeah, if the Nakba hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have happened, you stupid piece of shit. Oh, well, if we go, actually, like, there's no such thing as free will. We're just, we're just deterministically driven by the events of the past. What do you want about?
Are you justifying 60,000 dead because of what happened on October 7th?
I'm just saying it's a matter of fact. And if you don't admit that, then you're going to lose a very large portion of the community.
Hold on.
You're going to lose, excuse me, sir, by criticizing Israel, you're actually doing an optics faux pas. Take it from me, the guy whose job it is to, like, do the optically better way of defending Israel.
I'm admitting that what happened in Gaza came about as a result of October the 7th. I'm saying it doesn't justify it. And I would argue nothing justifies October the 7th, but October the 7th doesn't justify what happened in Gaza. And that's what my position is. Your position is up until January, it was justified to do that. And then you came out for a ceasefire. I'm saying when they bombed the Jabalia refugee camp in the end of October and killed 100 people to get one Hamas commander, that was a war crime. And that should be investigated as a war crime. And the people behind that should go to prison. And the American politicians who provided the bombs that dropped on Jabalia refugee camp should be held to account.
Medhi, let me ask you about sort of the sentiment I'm taking away from what Jeremy is saying and what I've heard from some people in my life, people I love, politicians I know, activists. I mean, on Pod Save America Monday, I talked about some positions I'd like to see the Democratic Party take. That meant, my list was like not funding the Israeli military, recognize Palestine as a state, don't take money from AIPAC, some other stuff. And I got a message from a friend, a good progressive Democrat who was genuinely hurt. And he said to me, "You are making the Democratic Party tent feel smaller to me." He said, "There's room."
God, the liberals, man. By not supporting this genocidal ethno-state, you're not holding space for me. You're not holding space for me, and it's making me feel attacked.
In your new Democratic Party for Zohran Mamdani and, sort of anti-Zionist views, but me, a liberal Zionist, I'm no longer welcome in the Democratic Party as you described.
Correct. Why the are you hinging like your votes in America for American politicians on whether or not they support a foreign country that you don't live in? Like, no, I'm sorry. That's I refuse, even on an ethical basis. If you want to remain a Zionist, I can't legally stop you. But the idea that everyone else in the world has to bow a knee and like, oh, no. Okay, maybe we agree on 100% of issues domestically, but we also need to agree on the indefinite funding and aid given to this foreign nation. F you, okay? If you're a liberal Zionist, shut the up and vote Democrat, even if they don't support Israel. And if you would support a Republican because they're Zionist, even if they disagree with you on your domestic issues, then you were never a progressive and you were never a Democrat. Yeah, sit your white ass down, basically, when a black woman is speaking.
Wow. Because I think the U.S. should support Israel.
Wow.
And I guess I'm wondering, what would you say to a liberal Zionist who feels that way, who feels like they're no longer welcome in the kind of party I'm outlining?
Eat shit.
So your friend may be a progressive, but he's what's called a PEP, right? He's a progressive except Palestine, because there is this carve out when it comes to liberals and the approach to the Middle East that we want equality, human rights, progressive values, except on this one conflict. And I would say, spare me the self-victimization. I just mentioned earlier to Jeremy, the entire Democratic Party in Congress does not support Palestine. It still supports Israel, even while 8% of Democrats told Gallup this month that they support Israel's actions in Gaza. In Congress, it's about 88% of Democrats. So
you are the most catered to, overrepresented group in politics in the history of the planet, dude. Like, seriously, the disconnect between what real human beings want and what politicians want is on this issue greater than basically any other issue. It is insane how catered to you are. Quit whining.
Actual Democratic Party, the organized party, the leadership, the establishment, the presidential candidates, the senators, the donors, or organizers, the DNC, they are all hardcore still pro-Israel. They are not pro-Palestine. The idea that your friend would say this is a party that welcomes Zohran Mamdani, are you kidding me? Zohran Mamdani has still not been endorsed by Chuck Schumer, has still not been endorsed by Hakeem Jeffries, had Islamophobic...
Cory Booker, too. Cory Booker, yeah. Just today, I believe, refused to endorse him.
Abuse thrown at him by Kirsten Gillibrand. Give me a break. If anything, it's the other way around. You have a pro-Palestine candidate, a Muslim immigrant, as the Democratic mayoral nominee, and the party can't even get behind him. Why? Not because of his freeze the rent policies, but because of his Palestine position. So I would say that this kind of wanting to be the victim is great, but it's not true at all. And Israel behaves in the same way. Oh, we're oppressed by everyone. No, you're a nuclear power in the Middle East that just bombed 4 of your neighbors and has kept millions of people under apartheid and occupation for decades and thumbs its nose at international law, the Geneva Conventions, the ICC and the ICJ. So this whole self-victimization stuff, it's all a distraction from the fact that babies are being starved to death in Gaza right now. And if that's not what we're talking about, then sorry, forgive me if I don't accept your progressive credentials.
It's like what I said with like Zionists have long since stopped trying to convince people that they're correct. I think maybe J Street is trying to fix that. Like the AIPAC approach is to just browbeat you. You're an anti-Semite if you question us. Undying fealty to Israel no matter what. America second, Israel first. If you disagree with us, you're an anti-Semite. We'll get you expelled from college. We'll get you removed from your job. We'll take your citizenship away. It doesn't matter. We'll ruin your life if you criticize Israel. That's the AIPAC position. No actual arguments, just like if you disagree with us, you're and it's been working out pretty poorly for them, at least in terms of like demographically, the political positions of America have been shifting anti-Israel reliably for years, you know? And I think J Street is trying to like dip their toes a little bit back in where they're like, well, we'll try to make an argument, but like underlying the argument will continue to be this same like self-victimization bullshit, right? Like we'll try to make an argument, but when you easily tear it apart with your bare hands, like Medhi Hasan is doing here, we'll go back to this like pathetic, the unspeakable horror of October 7th. I knew people who died. Yeah, that's what happens when people die, stupid you piece of shit. You think anyone knew the God knows how many Palestinians who have died? Oh, no. But you don't understand. October 7th was special. Numerically, it was, at minimum, a 50th as special as what you've done to Palestinians. Probably significantly less special than that, because we know that far more than 60,000 have died. But so it comes back to the browbeating. The only real argument they have is like, you're being too mean. You're being anti-Semitic. They are, in fact, the ones being anti-Semitic, but, you know, lost cause there. Another century of anti-Semitism predicated on the unbelievable loyalty that every American politician has performatively demonstrated to Israel.
Well, you know, I just think that it's just too simplistic, Medhi, and I really respect you, but, you know, you are just simply making this into a black and white issue and not hearing
pussy shit like this. Yeah. Oh, I really like you, but like, you're really losing me with this. You're really, I don't feel included in your tent.
Genocide is a black and white issue, Jeremy. Forgive me.
Right, but you know, if you make this into you either are pro-Israel or you are pro-Palestine, we are condemning these people to forever war, and we're condemning people to have more.
By condemning Israel, actually, you're in favor of the forever war. Never mind the fact that Israel is the one that keeps fighting with all of its neighbors and has the nuclear power with the Samson option, where they threaten to end the world if they are ever existentially threatened, an option they deny to all of their neighbors.
Generations of genocide and famine and bloodshed and horror, because you have to pick a winner and you have to pick one side. And I think where I fall...
I'm sorry, what famine and genocide exactly has Israel experienced in the past 80 years, out of curiosity? You're condemning the region to genocide and famine if you criticize Israel. What's would you mind explaining that to me?
I believe it is where the majority of the Democratic Party fall, where I know Tommy's friend, you know, the liberal Zionist probably falls, is we are looking for a win-win out of this. We are looking for a way in which the Jewish people can feel that they do, in fact, have a state, that they have a right to have a national home in. And
two equal causes, okay? Ending the genocide, and also we want Israeli Jews to like feel valid, yo. We want them to feel like their desire to have an ethno-state where their citizenship and legal rights are prioritized over the rights of others, but they still get to pretend they're the only liberal democracy in the Middle East. They get that, but like, then there's the genocide. And like, basically we're trying to fix both of these things. They're both very important.
And that the Palestinian people too can have the same exact state and freedom and rights. And I know we are a long way from that, and I know what the problems are, and I've articulated them, what the problems are with...
Well, not the same state and the same rights, because you want the America to continue to supply Iron Dome funding to Israel. So you still want us to... Listen, well, we could treat you both equally. I say we start giving the 2,000-pound bombs to Free Palestine. What they do with it isn't our business, much in the same way that what Israel's done with their neighboring countries hasn't been our business. I mean, just this idea that we want parity and equal treatment, it's so bullshit.
American foreign policy with Democratic policy, Republican policy, the United States has been a failed mediator. And those who have carried out, with all due respect to Tommy, those who have carried out the foreign policy of the United States over the course of the last 30 and 40 years on this conflict have failed miserably. But it doesn't change the fact that there isn't only one good guy in this, and everything that is evil is on one side and everything that is good is on the other side. Both sides have...
The fake appeal to nuance has always been a tool of fascists. You know, they do it with Russia as well. Russia is unambiguously the antagonistic power in their invasion of Ukraine. But if you listen to Russian shills online, you would get these myriad arguments about how, oh, actually, like something about like NATO and like grain deals with Ukraine means really like Ukraine invaded Russia with grain deals or something. Something about how like Russian paid separatists in the Donbass are actually like, yeah, basically like it's really complicated, yo. And people did the same thing with the Nazis, like muddling the water and arguing that Polish people were persecuting German ethnics on the western border of Poland. I mean, Russia tried that exact same move too. They always love to appeal to moral nuance. Sorry, loser. Sorry, virgin. In reality, there are good people and there are evil people, okay? Nuance is in implementation. What's difficult is knowing the exact way to build a highway layout to maximize throughput while minimizing traffic congestion when you move from highway to arterial road, okay? The nuance is when you're writing computer code and trying to work out a bug. In real life, with wars, oftentimes it's pretty black and white, okay? It's not always that complicated.
A history of trauma. Both sides have committed crimes. Both sides have been victims. Both sides have legitimate rights and needs and claims. And the only way...
Both people have died. Wehrmacht has died. Soviets have died. People die everywhere. It's all like... I just think war is bad. I think by criticizing Germany specifically, you're condemning Europe to indefinite war, famine, genocide.
Forward is...
I'm tired of... I can't listen to this guy anymore. I don't care. I hate these people. Would rather listen to Fetterman. These dickless... And you know they've got a chip on their shoulder because these J Street dipshits have been playing second fiddle to AIPAC for decades. Because the truth is, if you support Israel, it is because you love bloodshed. You love death. Supporting Israel, at least in the capacity of being a lobbyist for Israel, like you're not just a random, like you're not an 82-year-old Jewish New Yorker who likes Israel in the abstract, even though you don't really follow what's going on right now because you understand that your people are persecuted. I mean, if you're a lobbyist for AIPAC, you're just evil. You like death. You like blood. You probably love money, right? And J Street also loves these things, but they've had to fill a rhetorical gap that AIPAC has left. And unfortunately for them, AIPAC's approach has been a lot more popular because, as it turns out, if you like Israel, it's probably better optics for you to just openly celebrate death. You're going to miss the part where Hasan gets him to say he can't call it a genocide because it hurts his feelings. I'm not going to sit through 20 more minutes of that. You have a timestamp? No? I didn't think so. Towards the end, about 5 minutes. Okay.
Make peace or apply that label. And I just can't quite grasp, it does feel like a gotcha game, that it is trying to force people into using a single word when I'm willing to, describe this in any way and admit in any way that this is an absolutely inhuman, awful situation that I want nothing to do with, but I don't want to use that term to describe it.
Why?
Right? And to me, I'm a little older than the 60-year-old grandmother. I object to your 60-year-old grandmother thing. It is very, very painful for my family, who lost many people in the Holocaust. The Holocaust is the origin story of the law of genocide. It is very painful, and it is very painful for Palestinians what is happening. And we can talk about the pain of what is happening and the horror.
There's only ever been one genocide, guys. Sorry.
Of what is happening to the Palestinian people without
the amount this does to further anti-Semitism is genuinely unimaginable, man. Like this being effectively propagated as state policy, as rhetoric, well, oh, no, you can't use the word genocide. The Jews have like copyrighted that or something. What the fuck are you talking about, man?
Forcing people like me and my younger sister in Queens to use the word. And if we
forcing They're forcing me to use this language. It makes my feelings. It brings up the word. Jesus Christ. Jesus.
Refuse to use the word to somehow say, well, then clearly you don't have morals. Then clearly you are not welcome in our space. This notion that somebody who may support the right of the Jewish people to have a state of their own isn't welcome in progressive spaces. This notion that somehow, that Zion.
Yes, I do think that, actually. We already have it Israel, and we call it New York, okay? It's only the greatest city in the world. Sorry if that's not enough for you.
Zionists are not welcome. People who don't use the word genocide aren't welcome. We're going to be booed if we don't use that word. I just ask people who are looking to actually save lives, who are looking to make peace, who are looking to find solutions, to realize that we can be stronger together if we are not forcing each other to use these words.
Just to be clear, neither me nor Tommy have said any of those things. You're talking about someone else.
No, I'm talking in general.
We've not said any of that stuff. I've not said any of that. I would never force you to use a word.
That it does happen in progressive.
It does happen, but it does happen. But my point is not that. My point is about truth. I think language should be truthful. It shouldn't just be about whether you offend or not offend people. And I think, just to go back to your point, you said about
we do need to re-embrace radical free speech advocacy in the right context, because it is insane how censorious everything has gotten, and how aggressively the Zionist right essentially uses social justice idpol language to justify the worst atrocities imaginable.
Forcing you to use a word. I would never want to force you to use a word, and I hope vice versa. But it works both ways.
He would force you to use a word, Medhi Hasan. If he had the power, he would have you arrested. He would have you blacklisted from your job, arrested. He would have you killed. They all do. Every Zionist lobbyist is an authoritarian. You have to be authoritarian to be a Zionist lobbyist. There is no other way to be one. And much as AIPAC has done the same, much as you see the same behavior from StopAntisemitism.org or the ADL, they have taken every chance they can to dox, blacklist, come after people's jobs, have people expelled from school. Tons of people have lost their jobs, lost their academic careers. Tons of people under pressure from these organizations were forced out of Harvard and Columbia and others during the student protests against genocide, the encampments. And it is because they want to make it as ruinous to be anti-Israel as I want it to be a Nazi. They want to conflate these lines. Yeah, Trump just today said again, if you are critical of Israel, we won't even give your state disaster aid relief. My cousin literally got suspended last week for simply stating the Holocaust wasn't the only genocide in history.
You say that somebody says to you to force you to do genocide and you don't want to, fine. But the people who do use the word genocide are accused of doing blood libels. They're accused of being anti-Semites. You would accept, would you not?
Right, of course.
But exactly. But you would accept that when I say Israel is committing a genocide, you don't agree with me.
I phrase both sides, but I know you'll get mad at me. But both sides do that.
But yes, look, on this, both sides is appropriate. But my point being, you do recognize that there is a huge pressure now.
Absolutely.
And I would ask you this, genuinely. You said the word gotcha earlier. It's not a gotcha, because I don't get as many chances to have these conversations. So I appreciate Tommy and Crooked for having this conversation. But Jeremy, I genuinely want to ask you in good faith, when you hear Omar Bartov and all these Holocaust historians, Jews, Israelis, saying we studied the Holocaust and we think Gaza is a genocide, what do you genuinely think about that? Does that make you think again? I'm just wondering.
I feel absolutely no need to get to the point where I'm comfortable with that word.
I bet. It must be a really difficult emotional journey for you, man. That must be really, really rough,
God bless the scholars who, really look into this, the lawyers who understand the ins and the outs. This word was only invented 70 years ago. There have been plenty of mass killings and horrors throughout human history.
Sure,
right?
I've heard this argument made by Nazis that delegitimizing the Holocaust by saying that a lot of the modern terminology for a genocide was only created to describe the Holocaust. Therefore, the Holocaust is invalid because they had to invent terms for it. This is an argument I have heard most from Nazis. The argument of illegitimacy because these terms are new.
If I said the Nazis didn't do a genocide, you would rightly call me a Holocaust denier. So you do put value in the word in certain places.
As 1 million Armenians were being killed by the Turks, nobody was arguing over, do we need to call it a genocide?
But now we have this term, Jeremy. Come on.
What is stupid? So wait, determining whether or not something is a genocide matters only after the date the term was adopted its meaning. So like nothing that happened beforehand could have been a genocide, and everything afterwards and only afterwards now has to be compared to the Holocaust. Well, but what's happening right now in Gaza is happening now after the invention of the word. So what is he even talking about?
But the issue isn't what we call it, and there's no need to force people into that place. If one
there's a legal argument, but yes, put that to one side.
So leave it to the courts. Leave it to, ultimately there will be a legal decision. Ultimately there will be that call made, and people will have to face.
What do you call Gaza out of interest? Do you call it a crime against humanity, war crime?
A moral abomination. It violates every sense of who I am.
Wow, how convenient that his denunciation would avoid any legal terminology. I think it's really icky. It makes my tummy hurt. Ooh, chest feels tight. Indigestion.
Jewish people should not be doing to other people what was done.
But in terms of accountability, it's a crime, right? People should be held to account.
What is happening to starve another people, to deny food, to deny medical aid, to destroy 90% of the housing. I mean, this is a crime, what is happening, and there needs to be accountability. I'm completely there on that. But for me, I am not comfortable using that term, and I think that in the interest of trying to keep some form of coalition built across lines that bring together Jewish Americans and Muslim Americans and Arab Americans.
Yeah, I think that your insistence that Hitler too was doing a genocide is really, really bad optics, bro. Guy who hates you and your cause. Yeah, we know.
It's Palestinian Americans, progressive Americans. It is really important to understand why it is so hard and painful for us to use that word to describe this, and we are willing to admit how horrible it is and to work across lines to try to solve it, but feel cornered on the issue of the word.
One thing I would say is that according to the polls, last year, a year ago, 1 in 3 American Jews thought it was a genocide in Gaza. So it's not like it's a universal position in the Jewish. I would argue that number's probably higher now if you poll them again.
There's no universal positions in the Jewish community. If we can at least take one
or in the Muslim community, or in the Muslim community.
Well, listen, I want to thank you both so much for this conversation. I know damn well how.
I don't thank one of them. Thank you, Medhi Hasan.